Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome to the temple. We have a very special Shabbat tonight. It's Interfaith Shabbat, and we have an amazing speaker, Fred Whittaker, who is a true friend of the Jewish community, the people of Israel, and all of us here. So we are really privileged to have such an amazing speaker with us tonight. And we begin our service singing together, Hinei Matov Umanaim, how good and how pleasant it is to be here together, friends celebrating Shabbat together. I would like to invite Avery Curtis, who is our bat mitzvah this Shabbat, to lead us with the blessing over the candles and the fruit of the vine. Please turn to page 2 for the blessing over the candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat. Now turn to page 5 for the Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Praise be you, Adonai, sovereign of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine.
Amen. Thank you and Mazal Tov, Avery. We turn now to page 20 to welcome the Sabbath bride as we sing together Lecha Dodi.
Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad Ishmiyanu el hayukad Adonai echad u'shmo echad Lechem ultiferet v'litchila Yalalala 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 Yalalai la 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 Likrat dodi likrat kala yalalai la 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 Bnei Shabbat nikavela.
And we rise as we turn to page 28 for the Berlow.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who spreads the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, forcefully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch Ata Adonai, Ama'ariv, Aravim. And we turn to page 34 for the calling of the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise. Bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be a symbol between your eyes. Write them on the doorposts of your house, and upon your gates, and upon your gates. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise, and when you rise.
And we turn now to page 40 to sing the same song our ancestors sang as they were crossing the Sea of Reeds, Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha va'im Adonai, mi chamocha nadar b'kodesh, norot ilot oseh v'aleh.
Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, הפורש סוכת שלום, עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Shamri, 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 Shabbat, Vikore, Anek Shabbat, Yismechu, Vimalikutecha, Shamri, 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 Shabbat, Vikore, Anek Shabbat.
As we turn to page 46 for the tefillah.
Adonai sifatai tivtav ufi agitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, God of our fathers and mothers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, God of Sarah, God of Rebekah, God of Rachel, and God of Leah, the great, mighty, and awesome God, transcendent God, who bestows loving kindness, creates everything out of love, remembers the love of our fathers and mothers, and brings redemption to their children's children for the sake of the divine name. Sovereign deliverer, helper, and shield, blessed are you, Adonai, Sarah's helper, Abraham's shield. Baruch ata Adonai, Magen Avraham, ve'ezrat Sarah. You are forever mighty, Adonai. You give life to all. You cause the wind to shift and rain to fall. You sustain life through love, giving life to all, through great compassion, supporting the fallen, healing the sick, freeing the captive, keeping faith with those who sleep in the dust. Who is like you, source of mighty acts? Who resembles you, a sovereign who takes and gives life, causing deliverance to spring up and faithfully giving life to all? Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives life to all. Baruch ata Adonai, mechayeh hakol. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch ata Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated as we turn to page 61 for the blessing for Shalom. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, or eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name allow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch ata Adonai, amvarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. The Misha Berach, the prayer for courage and strength and healing in our lives, is on page 253.
and let us say, Amen. The renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. There's a rabbinical teaching that there are two kinds of righteous people that secure their place in the world to come, in heaven. There's those who secure their righteousness and their place in the world to come by living a life of loving kindness and good deeds. And there's the second kind that in one specific act of righteousness secure their place as a righteous person in heaven. Tonight we have a very special guest that merits both. He secures his place as a righteous person in our community, among the people of Israel, among everyone who knows him, and I'm sure also in heaven, in a lifelong of acts of love and kindness, of teaching his students to love every human being, no matter who they are, what the color of their skin is, what their religion is, what kind of person they are. And he does it mainly through teachings about the lessons that come from the Holocaust. He also is a righteous person, or a double righteous person, just because of one Sisyphic journey that he did for securing one act in our Commonwealth of Kentucky, and that is that Holocaust education would be something that is done in every school in our Commonwealth of Kentucky. There's another rabbinical teaching that says that a good teacher, a real educator, is a teacher for life. Well, Fred Whittaker is not only a teacher for life and a great educator to thousands of students that were in his class, but to everyone who met him, whether it's from the Muslim community, the Christian community, or our Jewish community. It's with great pleasure and pride that I am inviting to speak with us tonight our friend, a true friend of the Jewish people, Fred Whittaker, please.
Rabbi David, that is so wonderfully kind. Thank you so much. The generosity of my introduction really makes my heart fill, and today I deeply appreciate it. As a Holocaust educator and Catholic school religion teacher, I have been blessed for the past 20 years to have had frequent cause to partner with my friends in the Jewish community, whether as with pupils and parents in tow, or as a student of wisdom and faith, eager for insight and mentoring. I've often been welcomed into the sacred space of synagogues, the hallowed ground of memorials, and the peace of community centers. That I can find home within these walls and upon these grounds and of all of these places. That we can, with sincerity, call one another brothers and sisters. That we share commonly the sacred task of Holocaust remembrance and the belief that it is essential, life-affirming, and part of healing the world, allows me to know that I'm always amongst family when I'm with you. I'm certain this evening will be no different. I'm deeply humbled, honored, and filled with gratitude to be here. Thank you for having me. I've been invited to reflect briefly upon how successive classes of my grade 8 students worked for 13 years to pass legislation which would mandate the teaching of the Holocaust in classrooms across Kentucky. Those efforts culminated 25 months ago in the passage of the Ernie Marks, Ann Klein, and Fred Gross Holocaust Education Act, a piece of legislation which accomplishes nearly all of the academic and pedagogical goals we've had since day one. It is our hope that this legislation will create a light for our young people, which will both illuminate new paths into a more tolerant and compassionate world, and which testifies to the darkness and dangers of what can befall all of us if we do not walk in the direction that these paths lead. We've taken the first steps into a responsibility, both academic and moral, that has been calling to us since the first day that the Holocaust began. That work remains, that we are only at the beginning, that we must place ourselves upon this path wisely and mindfully, or risk becoming lost is certain. But by our efforts, we proudly found ourselves at the educational front lines, joining a minority of only 16 other states which mandate Holocaust education, and understanding clearly that although we have just begun our work, we are blessed still to witness the grand horizon of possibilities that our efforts have created. It was over 13 years ago that a student of mine was reflecting upon the changes she had seen in herself and her classmates over the course of our Holocaust studies curriculum. She compared her new awareness to an awakening, taking greatest delight in having learned of the power she now held as an activist, a person with a conscience, and a keeper of sacred memory. I really believe that everyone should have a chance to learn about the Holocaust, she said. When she was told that only a few other students in Kentucky actually were permitted to study the Holocaust because it wasn't listed upon the official tally of courses considered core content, she became visibly perplexed and hurt. The lives of those who perished or survived the Holocaust were now connected soulfully to hers. To ignore them was to ignore her family of heart. She exploded with indignation. Amongst the only words I remember from the lightning of her angst was, "Well, we should change that. We really ought to make a law." We accepted her challenge with passion and conviction and began a 13-year-long journey through the wilderness of Kentucky politics, attempting to mandate by submitting legislation and creating a law the inclusion of Holocaust-specific studies in all secondary schools across the Commonwealth. In the beginning, we were novices in the way of politics, and we didn't find success. We remained mystified during the first years as to why our bill kept dying or kept being routed into the quicksand of unrelated subcommittees, which would quickly find ways to make the bill invisible and disappear. Navigating the political wilderness of the Kentucky State House required a political savvy which we completely lacked at first, but which we slowly acquired. Over the years, my students learned and rehearsed the skills required of those who must interface directly with politicians and keepers of power. They learned how to make courteous and frequent phone calls to legislators and assistants, how to lobby, how to defend their cause insightfully with truth, how to shake hands, how to ask tough questions, and how to look someone in the eye meaningfully while they waited for answers. They learned that at the age of 14, they weren't too young to summon the courage to speak truth to power. In our final year, everything was different. We prepared a blitz of lobbying efforts, personally distributing DVDs, flyers, petitions, and fact sheets into the offices of every single legislator, destined for the inboxes of nearly every senator from across the Commonwealth. An avalanche of phone calls and emails from our support community poured through the wires from locations all over Kentucky and even from across the world. Establishing a physical presence which could not be ignored, we rode in our yellow school bus frequently back to the Capitol to check personally upon the progress of our bill. Our students standing upon the front lines, upon the steps of the Capitol, asking senators, please don't forget HJR 6, our Holocaust legislation. That journey has taken 13 years. It was only within the last few years that there was the perfect alignment amongst the myriad of stars which would be required to meet in the sky of our efforts if we were to achieve a triumphant end. Our own growth in political savvy, the mastery of some of the many in the use of mass communication, and the blessed presence still of a survivor, Fred Gross, who would bear witness with profound and poetic eloquence to the things his heart had seen, and the growth of Holocaust education across the Commonwealth were amongst the influences which allowed our efforts to shine brightly with success. There was no factor so powerful, however, than the fact that in the last years, we were never working alone. Around our cause grew up a magnificent community of support: survivors, parents, grandparents, relatives, siblings, strangers, authors and artists, musicians, peers, politicians, rabbis, and priests, all lent passionate advocacy to the cause. Jewish and Catholic, interfaith and interage, we learned that a family does not become created only because they are raised under the same roof. You can be born when the cause they share invites them into one another's hearts and lives. There was, in the end of our efforts, a choreography to our adventure, perhaps originating from someplace far beyond, gently guiding a beautiful interplay between youth and generations, insight and wisdom, gospel and Torah, and between the sacred and the everyday. The work we did done in the memory of those whose lives were lost in the places and voids of the Holocaust became more than work. It was a prayer because it brought attention to a just and perfect a cause was answered. The legislation we passed gave deep consideration to how it might be that studying the Holocaust would create more than historians. With great clarity, we came to see that simply causing students to know about the Holocaust, allowing them to become a container only for facts and dates, names and places, which define this chapter of the past, was no guarantee that we were helping to create a people who could create a world in which never again was a true reality. We were in search of experiences, of a rationale that would create a pilgrimage, a journey which would, after the students returned to this world, a journey which would allow them to be committed to the courage and compassion required for making certain that events like the Holocaust would never happen again. While the Kentucky Department of Education focused upon what students were studying, we gave deep consideration into defining why. We gave deep consideration into creating a rationale statement. A rationale statement defines a reason that an educational process should be started. It creates a lens through which all learning experiences can be focused. The document that we created and its accompanying resource pages created an inertia that points educators and students clearly in the direction of all of our goals. By epicentering an educator's efforts around the need not just to create historians, but rather to honor and dignify the Holocaust's Jewish victims and survivors, the statement we wrote attempts to create in all classroom settings a sacred space around the Holocaust's history. Students who journey into the Holocaust in Kentucky will come to understand the profound and unique connection that this history has to the Jewish community. They will create connections to the Jewish people who lived and suffered decades ago and be called into relationships with their Jewish brothers and sisters who live today, still in the crosshairs of hate and intolerance. That they will find family with them, that they will discern a spiritual kinship, potent in its ability to offset the darkness which maintains modern-day anti-Semitism, is a mindfully defined hope, for our work seeks to create a generation of students who have been called by their Holocaust lessons not solely into history, but unmistakably into relationships and families with their Jewish brothers and sisters, the families that define their lives today. When designing the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, James Ingo Fried, the architect, worked tirelessly to create a structure that was much more than a container holding artifacts. He was wildly successful. Those who visit it today can hear in its architecture and art the whisper of a wisdom which informs the heart and soul at every step. Darkness is everywhere. It both defines and obscures the lessons which the building strains to teach, except in one place, the Hall of Witness. After studying the Shoah in the way that our legislation intends, it is here that I arrive each year with 30 grade 8 students in tow. It is always our last stop after a journey of hours in which we have been immersed in the night and shadow of the memorial's great halls. Skylights pour sunshine onto our faces. A raised roof summons our souls to be set free, And as we turn our attention to the heavens, our first thought always is to pray for what we have witnessed and for who it is that we hope we might become because of what we have seen. For over a decade, we have been blessed to have our prayer led and guided by Cantor David Lipp. As an educator, a witness, and a friend, he accompanies my students and me as we journey to the memorial each year, stopping along the way to impart wisdom, insight, and faith. I watch as my students transcribe what he says, not just in notebooks, but across their hearts and souls. With Cantor's permission, my students stare into the eternal flame in the Hall of Remembrance, and dedicated to all who lost their lives in the Shoah, they pray Kaddish, memorized in its original Aramaic, in a room which seems filled both with angels and perhaps haunted by ghosts. My students speak to God with an earnestness that many have never achieved before. Cantor Lipp steps into the stillness and silence that is created always in the wake of our recited Kaddish and inhales. His breath becomes prayer itself as he fills the silence with the haunting notes and words of El Maleh Rahamim. My students are swept up by the first syllable as if they were weightless, carried like sunlight into a place where the separation between God and this earth has been caused to almost disappear. Despite not knowing Hebrew, my young Catholic students and Cantor Lipp pray powerfully together. Their souls connect umbilically to the souls of those whose lives were lost or broken in the Holocaust. And in that moment, experiencing their common humanity in the single heart which pulses life into all of us, we find one God as one family, and we turn our grief into a cause for hope and healing. This is how it should be. That should be the destination of a heart which has journeyed across the landscape of the Shoah, entwined with all others, permeable to the common humanity that we all share, connected to a God who has created all of us. And it could be here in the Commonwealth, if we adhere to the guidance of our legislation, if we rise to the challenge of helping students to find their greater selves, if we remember and are inspired by the wisdom of the survivors who came before us, and if we all pay attention to the wisdom of our sacred texts, then we cannot escape becoming one family who has hope that the Holocaust will never happen again. Thank you, Rabbi David, for having me. I am grateful, deeply honored, and deeply appreciate the ability of having spoken with all of you this evening. Thanks again.
Thank you, Fred, for the beautiful sermon and for all that you do for so many years for our Commonwealth, for our Jewish community, and for making this world such a better world. Thank you very much. It's deeply appreciated. And Shabbat Shalom. We turn now to page 283 as we prepare ourselves for the mourner's Kaddish. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. On this Shabbat, we remember especially Marianne Morgulon, John A. D'Angelo, Shirley Tanchester Rees, Herbert Levin, Dvora M. Herman, Terry Layson, Sol Rosen, Ben Lukowski, Harry Ziegert, Florence Schenkin, Minx Auerbach, Gloria Simon, Dr. Herbert S. Waller, Adolf Keisler, Sophie Friedman, Estelle Chapman, Francis Wolfson, Doris McGree, Warren Sparks, Gittel Zaller, Ben Shapiro, Joseph Rau, Louis Glogauer Sr., Dorothy Geller, Yetta Bass, Anne Leslie Hess, Rhea Silverstone, Glika Beerblom, Blanche Planck, Phyllis Newman, Toby Levy, Howard Jacobs, Anne Friedman, Alvin Greenfield, Mert Rosenberg, and in recent days, Philip Cochran, David Davis. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. And with the blessed memories of our loved ones in our hearts, we rise as we turn to page 294 for the Mourner's Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. זיכרונם לברכה. May the memories of our loved ones come to be a blessing and a benediction to us all. Amen. We have a special closing song right here for Interfaith Shabbat.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God our Creator. Family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אמותינו, שתוליכנו לשלום. May it be your will, Adonai our God and God of our ancestors, that we be guided on the paths of shalom, of wholeness and wellness and peace. And Adonai our God, guide us and protect us from every harm and evil on our way, and bless the work of our hands, and grant us loving kindness and compassion in your eyes, in the eyes of everyone who sees us. Adonai Shalom, bless all of us and all humanity with a Shabbat of Shalom. Shalom to our minds, to our souls, and to our bodies. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Louie.
Thank you, Louie.
Beautiful plane.
Thank you.
Thank
Avery.
you.
It was great to have someone in the
Yeah.